My name's Jeff Slapp. I'm VP of Cloud Managed Services at 365 Data Centers, and as Dan had alluded, the history of the company is interesting. We'll go into a little bit of that throughout, but just to kind of give you my background. So I've been down here in South Florida for 15 years. Started my own company down here as a VAR, professional services-based organization, and the last, Alfredo, I believe, was the last presenter, mentioned in 2008 when that big financial crunch happened, right? That changed the landscape considerably. And as it worked out for us with my firm, that's how I got into the service provider space, because we were doing, what was known at the time as virtual hosting, right? A virtual version of the old ASP model, right? Not called really cloud yet. But we were doing that when all of our contracts got locked up in that financial crisis, right? We weren't doing a lot of resale at that point. Everybody's budgets were frozen. But we did have a hosting service that we were running. And we were housed at the Host.net facilities up in Boca Raton. And I got a call from the CEO one day, and he said, let's talk. We want to know what you're doing. You're buying up a lot of power. You're buying up a lot of network. What are you guys into? And so we went through that, and then, long story short, they ended up acquiring our company. And then I came on at Host.net in 2009 and took over what was known at the time as the Virtualization Services Division, now known as, of course, Cloud. Now, since then, lots changed. 365 Data Centers came into the South Florida market and has acquired all the Host.net resources, the network principally, but a couple of data centers, if you're familiar with the history. Boca and Fort Lauderdale was where we had our main data centers. And now we're comprised of a much larger organization, which I'll go into here. Our leadership team, hands down, unquestionably in my career, some of the most skilled folks that I've ever worked with in my 20 plus years now of doing this. Proven operators, proven business men and women, and people that really know how to get the job done, right? And what I say, real doers, not people who just talk, but actually do it and get it done. And most importantly, going into our mission statement and why we do what we do. And by the way, I really hate PowerPoints. I'm a guy who paces. I'm a guy who shoots from the hip. But this is the only slide I'm going to read to you word for word, because I think it's very important. Our mission is to provide the highest level of customer service and agility, coupled with enterprise-grade solutions, which are elegant, cost-effective, and robust in order to meet the requirements necessary for customer success. Right? It's a long statement, but the bottom line is, if we're not providing top-end customer service to our customers, then it doesn't really matter what the service is that we have. Right? It could be the best service on the planet. If we fail at customer service, we fail across the board. That's very important. Agility, right? We want to be very agile for our customers. Our customers have very highly demanding requirements, and we have to be able to meet those, or else we're just simply not relevant. So that's really our mission, and the why we do what we do, which I think is also equally important, besides making a lot of money and being profitable and building the empire, as I call it, which is all great. But at the end of the day, this is really the crux of why we do what we do. The services and workmanship we provide are a fundamental and critical extension of our customer's business. When the customer is successful, we are successful. When the customer wins, we win. This synergistic relationship is why we do what we do. At the end of the day, bottom line is this. We have customers in our colos today throughout all of our 10 data center markets up and down the East Coast today, and we'll show you a map of that are working on life-critical, mission-critical services for everything that you use in a day-to-day basis, right? But take an example. Some of our clients do medical research. At some point in my life, that client of ours is going to be probably working on something that may impact my life or my family member's life down the road. Maybe they're working on a cure for cancer or some sort of disease that I don't even know I have yet, whatever the case is. Our ability to allow them to maximize their full potential as a customer in our data centers, which is very technology-driven, is why we do what we do to the level that we do it, right? It's either go hard or go home. That's the idea. So we want to make sure that our customers are absolutely at their fullest potential, because it may come back at some point in the cycle, right? It's a small world. It all comes back eventually full circle at some point. So just want to make sure we state that, because if we're doing that properly, then we're building the empire. We're making the money. We're being profitable. Everybody's going to be certainly taken care of across the whole spectrum. Our map of where we are today, it's a little bit fuzzy, but I think you can see it. And we're going to, of course, make all these presentations available, I believe. So don't worry about memorizing any of this. But founded in 2012, this is 365 data centers, by the way. Founded in 2012 with the acquisition of several Equinix data centers, and then, of course, Host.net at the end of 2017. We are carrier neutral, right? Bring the carriers in. I think we've got across all of our data centers today something in the order of 50 some carriers or even more across our map, as you can see, is quite extensive. So we've got 10 data center locations that are east of the Mississippi, denoted here, but we also have 25 POP locations, right, where we have our networking gear across various other data centers that we don't own, that we just simply have points of presence in, okay? And our peering relationships are also very important, right? This is how we get you from A to B as quickly as possible on our network and on our backbone. Again, I'm not going to bore you with data center lingo. I think everybody understands what a data center is, at least I hope. The power, the co-location, the air conditioning, all the facilities and everything that goes into making sure that the actual underlying foundation is solid. Since the beginning of 365 data centers in 2012, we have had exactly 0 seconds of outage and interruption on our platform as far as the building and the facilities are concerned, right? So very, very well tight-run ship. Jason Kaiser, our VP of Operations, ensures that that's the case, because you can't do much when the power goes out, right? I think everybody would agree with that. So all the typical services that you would find in the physical colo and the facility space. Again, this is more of a battle card. I'm not going to go word for word on this, but this kind of gives you the full spectrum snapshot of what we're able to do today. And I want to be very careful, especially keep this in mind when you go back and look at this later. When we talk about managed services in general, right, or we talk about any of these services that we do, with the exception of network, which of course is very specific to us, because we not only operate our own data centers, but we also have our own backbone network and our own dark fiber network. But all the managed services that we do are actually through our partner community, right? We are not trying to be everything to everybody. We want, however, to bring the best of breed of all these technology services to the table for our customers, and that means through strong strategic relationships with our partners, right? So again, we want to focus on what we do well, which is the colo, the network, and those services that surround that, and we want to draw upon the strengths of our partner relationships to bring the best of breed of what they do respectively for the total solution. That's the game plan. So as you can see here, we pretty much, we have the color wheel there in the middle to kind of summarize it. Again, very hard to see on this screen, but when you get it, your hard copy, it'll be much easier. But we pretty much have the complete ecosystem covered there. And that's really what we're trying to go for today, because as we'll see in a little bit, I'm gonna talk about the opportunities that we are seeing, which of course are gonna be something that you're definitely gonna want to keep your eyes peeled for, related to this full service suite that we're talking about. So let's talk about a couple of the opportunities. So over the last 12 months or so, I'll be a year now, coming up in March. So ever since I started back with 365, we've been seeing this shift occurring. And it was probably back in the October timeframe when it was really, I think, publicly announced, most notably by Michael Dell, when he made a statement saying that there is an edge repatriation happening, meaning there is a pullback, or rebalancing, I like to call it, from the public cloud space for various reasons. And of course, a lot of those reasons that I hear are typically either due to cost or latency, or perhaps both. There may be other reasons. But don't get me wrong, the public cloud is alive and well. It's not going anywhere, right? But what their customers are seeing is that because of the sheer size of the data footprint that they're dealing with, and the networks that get you from A to B, and the fact that requirements change very, very quickly, you kind of can't put everything in one basket, right? There's this idea of latency due to distance, and this is one of the biggest problems why you're seeing the Amazons and the Azures of the world come out with on-prem solutions. It's because they're seeing the same thing too, right? They're not doing those solutions because they got nothing better to do. They're seeing it because they're seeing revenue leaving their platform to come back on-prem, and they want to capture that revenue, which makes all the sense in the world. But the truth of it is that whether it's cost or latency, there is a shift happening. The opportunity, of course, is to get in front of that train, not to get ran over by it, certainly, because it's going to be a big train when it happens, right? They're estimating 40% of the workloads that are out in the public cloud today are going to be rebalanced back on-prem, or what we like to call the edge, because when we say on-prem, we literally mean right inside the customer's offices, right? And no one's building data centers anymore in that way, right? It's not efficient. They're going to use the data center spaces that are already there, which is, of course, where the edge comes in. And that's why we've been focused on 8 of our 10 markets are all edge-based data centers. So we want to be able to capture that revenue. We want to be able to capture those opportunities as it's coming, because it's coming and it's going to land somewhere, right? All these workloads, all this data, it's got to live on servers, it's got to be connected with networks, it's got to be secured, and it's going to have to sit somewhere physically, right? And that's going to be in the edge data center space. And I'm sure everybody's heard that later this year, I believe it's AWS Outposts in particular, they're going to be announcing the release of their general availability of their platform, the on-prem version of AWS. So pretty exciting stuff, but again, we want to get in front of that. We want to capture those opportunities. Cybersecurity, well, what can I say? It's a huge market. It's a daily evolving market. What's interesting is that the amount of money that's spent every single year on cybersecurity increases, not surprisingly. But the other trend that's happening in parallel with that is the amount of breaches are also increasing. That's a very interesting trend, because you would think that the more money we're spending on something to combat it, that it would actually go the other way, and in fact, it's keeping pace with it. So that's very concerning. At the end of the day, if you don't have a good cybersecurity program in place, it's just a matter of when, not the if, right? It's going to be a breach somewhere, somehow, because take healthcare as an example, right? One of my points up here. On the black market, $300 per healthcare record is what your personal information goes for on the black market. And if you figure roughly 2 billion people on the planet have some sort of healthcare or healthcare-related information that's out there in the internet somewhere, that's a lot of billions, right? The bad guys are very, very highly motivated to get a hold of that information. And that's just the healthcare piece. That's not your financial information. That's not anything else about your life. That's just healthcare. So you could see why a lot of these breaches, and most notably of which was with one of the credit companies, I think you've seen in the news recently. Again, major target, right? They want that data because they sell that to the people who can use it against you. So the opportunity there, of course, is to make sure that we're getting in front of all the security-related, or the industries that are very focused on security, which of course is financial, healthcare, and so on. And again, that is getting so serious now that we're not just talking about fines anymore, right? We've seen GDPR show up, and there's, all the states kind of have their own version of it, and of course, it's just a matter of time until that becomes a government program where now you're going to have to be, held, your feet to the fire, regulated in a way. And if you have violations of those policies that are set forth by the government, it's not going to be fines. They're actually talking about jail time, depending on the severity of the breach. So this is serious business, right? This is almost, personal life impacting, right? If you fail at this role as a CISO, as an example. So that's, again, another opportunity, because this is something that has to be done. It's not something that it's not a nice to have, right? It's got to happen. So those are the near-term opportunities. Let's talk a little bit further down the road, right? Toward the end of this year into 2020. Smart edge computing is something that is, I would say it's fairly young in its maturity level, but it is something that is absolutely happening in parallel with the next topic, which we'll talk about, which is in the 5G space. But the idea of bringing back processing now back to the on-prem, the literal on-prem, right? And think about stores, retail, healthcare, those types of shops. They want to bring these capabilities back on-prem for, either near real-time or full real-time processing of information, right? With, of course, a backhaul to larger data centers upstream, such as edge data centers or even tier 1 markets in the public cloud and whatnot. Again, that is always going to be the case, the balancing of the equation of the data across those platforms. But the smart edge is very interesting, because this is almost a full return to what we used to be running 10, 15 years ago, right? Everything used to be on-prem for the most part. So now, because again, what is driving this is data, right? And you can see even in our name in our company, right? The data is highlighted. Without the data, it doesn't matter, right? We don't need servers and switches and routers and everything that makes all that happen if we don't have the data. The data is what's driving all of this. It's driving all the change. It's driving the pressure points in the technology, the processors, the memory, the CPU, the disks, and so on. Data is everything. So this is just another result of that pressure that's being applied in the industry. So keep an eye on smart edge computing-based opportunities, especially in the healthcare, retail, and even the manufacturing spaces. And then, of course, 5G. Now, I guarantee everyone in this room has heard 5G, right? We've been inundated with it. What's really interesting about 5G, though, and I've been doing a lot of education on this space as well, because wireless is not something that we specifically do, at least at this time. We do have some capabilities, but we don't provide any sort of wireless services in this type of fashion. But what this is going to do is it is now going to drastically increase the amount of bandwidth and, of course, the responsiveness of the networks that exist in Walmart, Target, down the road at the library, pretty much everywhere you go, right? You're going to be covered with 5G transmitter technology. And that means that now when you go and you fire up your iPhone or your iPad, you're essentially going to have gigabit level speeds to whatever you're accessing, right? Because that's the type of transformation we're talking about here. And when you have that, then that opens up opportunities even further to technologies like IoT, right? Which we're already in the midst of that already today. That's going to explode, because now all these additional devices that are talking with one another and collaborating and collecting data and sending more data up to the edge to be stored and processed and analyzed, that's going to just open up the floodgates even further to allow for those technologies to come onto the scene. An interesting statistic here, which kind of is it's a little bit beyond how do you even relate to this? But today we generate 2.5 billion gigabytes of data every single day, and that's increasing drastically. It's not just even an exponential increase, it's a geometric level increase. We are data freaks on this planet, right? Humanity in general. We love data and we generate everything in high definition, and that leads to other applications which generates even more data, and so on and so on and so on. So it is an acceleration curve that is out of control, and technologies like this are going to even put more pressure on that, which means you got to have somewhere to store it. You got to have networks that are going to be able to move it. You got to have systems that are going to be able to process and crunch that data. And again, this is all coming back to the edge space, right? Because I think on my last slide, that's really what we're seeing here. Sorry for the comical surfer dude on the wave there, but you get the idea. We're seeing this wave coming from both directions, all coming toward the edge. And actually, the edge, after this transformation takes place, is really going to be the new mid-tier, right? So tier 1, mid-tier, and then on-prem. It won't even be really the edge anymore. It'll be blurred considerably. But these opportunities are things that are happening right now that, just to kind of give you an idea, and I think this is really the crux of what we want to get to today. So we announced in January of this year, so just slightly over a month ago, I think it was January 8th when this announcement went out, we announced our new Enterprise Managed Services program. And what this program aims to do is it takes the OpEx model that we apply to our customers, right, from a network, security, colo, power perspective, right? Everything's paid on a monthly basis. We've been hearing over and over and over, certainly over the last several months, just like Michael Dell had mentioned, right, there's this move happening. So how do we make it easier for customers to make that move, that inevitable move, right? They're going to make the move somehow, some way, right? How can we actually make that easier for them? So with the Enterprise Managed Services program, or the EMS program, what that does is it now extends our current our OpEx model and takes the hardware and software solution that they would be putting in the rack or the cage or whatever their space is in our data center. They're going to get that technology either way. Why not get it from us? Why not get it through us and our partnerships, right? Because again, we're not in the business of necessarily reselling hardware. But what we'll do is we'll buy the hardware on behalf of the customer and put that in and stand it up and connect it and do all the things that we were doing before, but now it's move-in ready, okay? So that makes it very, very easy to not only acquire the technology that they need to put in the colo, which they're going to do anyways, but it also now operationalizes the cost model for them so that they're paying a standard fixed monthly cost for not only the network, the power, and the colo, but now even the solution that they're putting in there to connect and power and run their business. Because at the end of the day, I'm on calls 40 to 50% of the time, this is all I hear from customers. I don't want to be in the data center business anymore, and I don't want to be in IT management anymore. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be done. That just means that they don't want to be doing it anymore. Again, another massive opportunity, right? And again, we're not a managed service provider in the sense that we're going to be doing those things, but we're going to be drawing upon the partners to do that with us, in conjunction with us, because that's how we win as a community. That's how we are able to deliver these high-end services to our customers, is working with our trusted partners. And obviously, the folks in this room are a part of that community, right? And everything we're doing with Dan and TCG, this is how we get this done. So I think that's it. How did I do on time? Good? All right, good stuff. Are there any questions, by the way? Any questions before we transition? Yeah.
Can you go back to the EMS slide?
The EMS slide?
Oh, you can actually have a slide. You were just talking about it. So,
Yeah, I had it up here. It was a little hard to see.
right, when you were talking about, okay, so then they would purchase the hardware through you all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because these are clients that already have a space in your data center and have all their servers set up already. Is that the scenario?
They may. Yeah, if they already have an existing infrastructure, they might be doing a refresh,
Right. So then
as an example.
you
Yeah.
would copy what they have, let them purchase it through you and put it on site. Is that
Mm-hmm.
on premise?
Yeah, so imagine that they're in our colo today and they've got some aging gear. Let's say the whole infrastructure is aging, and believe me, there's quite a few customers that are. I've surveyed that personally. And let's say that we enter into a conversation with them and we say, okay, you've got a full rack of gear that's 6-7 years old. We want to bring you brand new technology, right? We want to modernize your digital transformation, right? All the fancy words that are out there, but we're just going to modernize your equipment. And what we're going to do is, it is true that we'll be able to acquire whatever that end solution is, right? After having a conversation between the vendors, the partners involved, because again, the partner's going to be involved, because the partner, at the end of the day, is going to be managing it for us, right? That's going to be managed service dollars to the partners, okay? That's how that ecosystem side of the equation is handled. So we're going to stand up that gear, whatever that happens to be. We're going to stand it up right next to the older gear. The partner then, of course, once everything's ready and move-in ready, the partner then will deal with the migration and the transition over to that new equipment. But the point is that we're making it as easy as possible for them to acquire the technology, to connect it, to secure it, to power it, and so on. All they got to do now is just simply transition to it, and of course that's where the partners come in. So if that process goes according to plan, which so far has been very, very good, and I'll give you an example of an opportunity that we're just about to close, hopefully this week or the beginning of next week, where we're doing this exact thing. It'll be our very first enterprise managed service deal. But the partner, once that is all deployed, and we say, okay, here are the keys, Mr. Partner, now on behalf of the customer, go ahead and do the work, do the transition of all the data. Once that's all done, then the old environment can be shut down, can be liquidated, can be sold on eBay, whatever the customer wants to do with that existing gear. And now they're running full on the new platform, on the latest, greatest technology. And now they don't have to worry about the day-to-day grind of the procurement, the testing, the setup, the burn-in time, and all the things that go into doing that deployment. Even the management of it. The customers, remember now customers are telling us they don't want to be in IT management anymore. And I think, if you're a partner, that's music to your ears, right? You love that, because that's, again, managed service dollars that you're going to get now on a monthly basis for 3, 4, 5 years or more, depending on what term of the contract that they signed. As an example, we have an insurance company that we're about to close. It's again, we just started this program in January, so I think it's a really good out-of-the-gate example of what we're doing here. They are consolidating their entire data center that's sitting in Long Island today down into 2 of our locations. It'll be 65 Broadway and our Philadelphia location, with a 3rd copy of the data sitting in our Nashville data center. Full data redundancy, full replication, full transparent network failover, everything fully handled for them. All they got to do is run their business, completely end-to-end handled. That opportunity is at the $90,000 a month mark. Right? All the opportunities that we've been involved with since the start of the program have been between 50 and 125,000, say, a month. Right? That's the magnitude of deals that we're talking about, and these are 5-year deals. So you can see this is pretty lucrative. It's a very, very good business to be in, and customers are asking for it. Right? We're not just suggesting it to the customers. So again, partner community, the vendor community, obviously everybody involved in making this process work. It's going to be good for everybody, and hopefully that answered your question. With a little extra, yeah.
So the transition you're talking about is transitioning, it's still
Correct, correct. Well, we are the edge, right, to be clear. So let me bring up, yeah, right here. So the 8 of the 10 data centers that you see here east of the Mississippi, these are considered edge markets, where 2 of them, the Chicago and the New York market we just happen to be in, those are tier 1 markets, right? But the other 8 are edge, and we are primarily an edge data center focused company. Because again, the founders and the board, that's what they saw as the opportunity, right, to go after, and I think they're right based on everything that we've seen so far in the industry and what the analysts are saying, right? The shift to the edge is real, so we're well positioned for that. And actually, later this year, coming up here very shortly, as I say in this, being in the service provider space now as long as I have, you're either buying or being bought. So we are in acquisition mode right now. Continue to extend that edge even further, because we have to be ready for that train that's coming, which is already happening, and we want to make sure that we can capitalize on those opportunities. And yeah, so that's the distinction here between our east-west network and our colo that goes north-south. But yeah, the idea is that they would reside in our colo. Now, in the case when Smart Edge comes onto the scene, right, there's going to be opportunities there where we probably would have to extend ourselves into the literal on-prem. And the good thing about that is because we own our own network, we do our own backbone services. We of course work with the carriers and handle the process even through to the last mile, right to the front doorstep of the customer. Right, we can manage that for the customer, or on behalf of the customer with the carriers, to make that equally as easy. Because that's the next shift that's going to happen. That'll probably be more into the 2020 space. Because Smart Edge is still, evolving to what that actually is going to look like, but it's coming. So, great question, though. Thank you. And yeah. Yeah. So Victoria Martinez, which is here, she's out of Tampa. She's our national channel manager. We've actually got Lori out of Tampa. We've got Ken out of Atlanta, who is also a national channel manager, I believe now. He's new to the team. And we've essentially have got channel managers throughout all of our 10 markets, and Victoria can certainly get you the information on that. Sorry? Do you have anybody in the South Florida area? Yeah, well, I mean, Victoria is going to be who you're going to want to talk to, right, for now. Yeah. Yeah, we are going to be extending the team. I believe we are looking to add another head here right in Boca Raton, where our South Florida headquarters is located. Yeah. Yeah.
Just a quick question. Don't assume anything. This is available for a new client, start a client.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great question. Yeah, so certainly a brand new greenfield deployment or an existing customer can take advantage of this program. Yeah, absolutely good question.